Coco can be racing across the couch 1 second, chasing a toy, pawing at your hand, acting like the smallest dog in the house somehow owns the entire room. Then you reach down and pick him up, and suddenly, everything stops. His legs go still. His little body feels strangely firm against your hands. His head barely moves. His eyes seem fixed on something you can't see. For a moment, Coco looks less like a dog and more like a tiny statue. Most Chihuahua owners see this and think the same thing. He's so good when I hold him. Maybe. But there is another possibility. Coco may not be relaxing at all. He may be freezing. And if you watched our story about why Chihuahuas seem to overreact to tiny things, you already know something important about dogs like Coco. What looks dramatic to us can feel completely reasonable from 6 inches off the ground. But this time, Coco isn't barking. He isn't shaking. He isn't trying to escape. He's doing something much quieter. And that silence is exactly why so many loving owners miss it. Because when a Chihuahua suddenly goes still in your arms, the real question isn't, why isn't he fighting me? It's, what is his body trying to tell me? That question becomes even more important because Coco's stillness can look exactly like good behavior. Imagine a Saturday afternoon. Your daughter is visiting. Your grandson is sitting on the living room rug, laughing as Coco circles around the coffee table. Then someone reaches down and lifts him. Coco doesn't growl. He doesn't kick. He doesn't snap. He simply goes quiet, so everyone relaxes. See? He likes being held. The same thing can happen at the vet when a technician lifts him onto the exam table, at the groomer when he's carried toward the back room, or at home when you scoop him off the couch and carry him upstairs to bed. No struggle, no barking, no obvious protest. And for humans, that silence feels reassuring. But dogs don't communicate only through resistance. Sometimes discomfort looks loud. A Chihuahua may bark, twist, pull away, or show teeth. But sometimes, the body chooses the opposite. It becomes still. And because Coco weighs only 6 pounds, that change can be incredibly easy to miss. If a 70-pound German Shepherd suddenly stiffened in your arms, you would notice immediately. But when Coco does it, he may simply look well-behaved. That is why the question from a moment ago matters so much. Don't only ask whether Coco is trying to get away. Watch his eyes. Watch his ears. Feel the tension in his body. Because sometimes, the quietest answer your Chihuahua gives you is still an answer. To understand why that stillness can happen, you have to see the moment from Coco's height. When he's standing on the floor, Coco has options. He can step backward when a hand comes too close. He can turn his head. He can walk behind the recliner, disappear under the kitchen table, or trot toward his little bed in the corner. Even when he chooses to stay near you, the choice is still his. Then your hands slide beneath his body. His paws leave the hardwood floor, and in less than a second, everything changes. Coco is no longer controlling where his body goes. His balance shifts. The room suddenly looks different from several feet higher. His legs can move, but they can't carry him anywhere. And the person holding him now decides when he moves, where he moves, and when his feet touch the ground again. That doesn't automatically mean Coco is afraid. Many Chihuahuas who have been gently handled for years absolutely love being carried. They lean into your chest, reposition themselves, and sometimes practically ask to be picked up. But for a sensitive Chihuahua, or one who was lifted suddenly, that instant loss of control can create uncertainty before the thinking part of the brain has time to catch up. Imagine someone unexpectedly lifting you completely off the ground. You may trust them. You may know you're safe. But your body would still react. And for Coco, that reaction can happen even faster. Because his brain doesn't have to decide that you are dangerous. It only has to realize, for this moment, Coco no longer controls what happens next. And this is where Coco's nervous system can make a decision before Coco ever consciously does. Most people know the two famous survival responses, fight or flight. But there is another one, freeze. You might see it when Coco is lifted off the couch before a trip to the vet, or when someone scoops him up near the front door because the UPS driver has just stepped onto the porch, or when you're standing in the driveway, Car door open, keys in one hand, and Coco suddenly realizes he's about to be carried somewhere he didn't choose. In each of those moments, running away becomes harder. His paws aren't on the floor. His body is being supported by someone else. And if Coco feels uncertain, fighting may not be the response his nervous system chooses either. So sometimes, the safest option his body can find is no movement at all. His muscles tighten. His mouth may close. His ears may drift backward. His breathing can become smaller and quieter. And from the outside, it can look almost peaceful. That is what makes this response so easy to misunderstand. Coco isn't standing there thinking, "I should freeze now." This happens much deeper than that. It is the nervous system trying to reduce conflict while the body waits for more information. Am I safe? Where am I going? When will my feet touch the ground again? And here is the part that surprises even experienced Chihuahua owners. A truly relaxed Coco can look almost exactly the same. Quiet, still, easy to hold. So the real clue is not simply whether Coco moves. It is what the rest of his body is doing while he stays still. So how can you tell the difference between a Chihuahua who feels safe in your arms and one who has simply gone still? Start with the body. When Coco is truly relaxed, he usually feels soft. His weight settles into your arm instead of holding itself rigid. His breathing stays easy. His eyes look soft rather than fixed. His ears rest naturally. He may turn his head when someone walks through the kitchen, sniff your shirt, shift one paw, or curl himself into a more comfortable position against your chest. A relaxed Coco still feels free to move. Now compare that with a Chihuahua who is freezing. The body may suddenly feel unusually firm. The legs stay tucked tight, the mouth closes, the ears pull backward. The eyes may widen, look away, or show more white than usual. You might notice a quick lip lick, shallow breathing, a tucked tail, or a head that stays strangely still, even when something nearby catches his attention. And here is one of the biggest clues. Watch what Coco does after you put him down. Does he stay close? Does he turn back toward you? Does he place a paw on your leg like he wants to come up again? Or does he immediately walk across the living room, shake his body, hide behind the recliner, or put distance between you? That moment can tell you more than the entire time you were holding him. But never judge Coco from one signal alone. Ears back don't automatically mean fear. Stillness doesn't automatically mean stress. You have to read the whole dog and the situation around him. So think about your own Chihuahua for a second. When you pick them up, do they melt into you, or do they become very, very still? Tell me in the comments which one sounds more familiar, because once you notice the difference, you may never hold your Chihuahua the same way again. And once you start noticing those small signals, the next question becomes obvious. How do you pick Coco up without making him feel like every choice has disappeared? It starts before your hands even touch him. Picture Coco curled up on the couch on a quiet Sunday morning. Instead of reaching down suddenly and scooping him into the air, you let him see your hands coming. You say the same simple word every time. Up, then you pause, just for a second. That tiny warning gives Coco something surprisingly important: predictability. When you lift him, support more than just his chest. One hand goes beneath the front of his body. The other supports his hips and back legs. Then bring him gently toward your chest, so he feels stable instead of hanging in open space. The same thing matters in everyday moments. When you're carrying Coco from the house to the car before a vet appointment, when you lift him onto the bed at night, or when guests arrive and you need to move him away from an open front door. Don't make speed the goal. Make safety the goal. And if Coco begins to stiffen, look away or hold his breath. Pay attention. Sometimes the most respectful thing you can do is place him back down before he feels the need to struggle. Then watch what happens. If Coco stays beside you, looks up, leans against your leg, or asks to come back into your arms, you have given him something bigger than freedom. You have given him a choice. For a Chihuahua who is unsure about being handled, that trust can be built slowly. A gentle touch, a reward. A tiny lift, a reward. A few calm seconds in your arms, then back to the floor. Because trust is not teaching Coco to tolerate being held. Trust is teaching him that being held does not mean losing every choice he has. And maybe that is the deeper lesson hiding inside something as ordinary as picking Coco up. Coco lives in a world built for creatures much bigger than he is. A couch cushion can feel like a platform. A staircase can tower over his body. A hand reaching down from above can cover almost his entire chest. And throughout an ordinary day, we make dozens of decisions for him without even thinking about it. We lift him off the sofa, carry him through the front door, place him in the car, hand him to the vet, move him away when guests arrive. Most of those choices come from love. But from Coco's point of view, love feels safest when he knows what is about to happen, when his body is supported, when his signals are noticed, and when being small does not mean being powerless. So the next time Coco suddenly becomes perfectly still in your arms, don't rush to call him calm. Look at his eyes, feel his muscles, notice his breathing, and most importantly, watch what he chooses to do when his paws touch the floor again. Because trust isn't measured by how quietly a Chihuahua allows us to hold them. Sometimes, it is measured by how safe they feel while we do. And if this changed the way you see Coco, watch our story about why Chihuahuas overreact to things that seem tiny to us. Because once you start seeing the world from 6 inches off the ground, a lot of strange Chihuahua behavior suddenly makes sense, and Coco starts feeling a little less mysterious and a lot more understood.